Hello and welcome to Let's Talk MS, the new podcast from MS UK. Each episode will be covering topics to inform, entertain and help you live a happier and healthier life with multiple sclerosis. My name is Ian Cook and I'm your host. I'm a secondary progressive MSer, a journalist, and I write for New Pathways magazine, MS UK's bi-monthly publication. MS UK is a national charity here for everyone affected by multiple sclerosis. For help and support, visit ms-uk.org. Hello and welcome to Let's Talk MS, the new podcast from MS UK. My name is Ian Cook. I'm a secondary progressive MSer and I write for New Pathways magazine, MS UK's bi-monthly publication. In today's programme, we'll be looking at Wim Hof, the man they call the Iceman and the King of Cold. The Wim Hof method is a way you can keep your body and your mind in its optimal natural state through exposure to cold, breathing and training your mind. We will also be looking at a Facebook group which provides a forum for mums with MS to share their experiences of living with a chronic illness and coping with the challenges it poses. That's coming later. But first, Wim Hof. In simple terms, the Wim Hof method is a way to keep your body and your mind in its optimal natural state. For most of our evolutionary history, a merciless natural environment did this for us, with sub-zero temperatures, howling winds, and hungry wolves keeping our muscles and veins supple and our minds sharp and clear. Fast forward to today, and our phones are exhausting our brains while the rest of our body wastes away as we sit in toasty rooms strapped to stiffening chairs. As a result, the natural defences that we relied on for most of our evolutionary history are no longer on high alert. We fall ill more easily, we stress out, we lose sleep, and we wake up without focus or energy. That is where the Wim Hof method comes in. So, how exactly can exposure to cold, breathing, and training your mind help people with MS? Well, here to tell me is Wim himself. Okay, Wim, welcome to the podcast, first of all. It's great to have you on board. Can you tell us very briefly in your own words, what is the Wim Hof method? I've heard of it myself, but there may be listeners out there who haven't. So please tell us briefly what it is.
The Wim Hof method is a scientifically studied method coming from a long-term exercising in nature. And in nature, we find the cold, and exposing our bodies in the cold activates deep physiology. And I found that out when I was grieving deeply because of the loss of my wife. I had no money, I had 4 children, and I was heartbroken. She suicided and I was heartbroken. And then I found so much relief in going into the cold because it activates such a deep level within me. But now, not only in me, after doing studies, we have seen that the regular practice in the cold, doing breathing exercises, I mean, when you go into the cold, you start to breathe deep. And that deep breathing changes the body's chemistry. So the cold is a great exercise to activate deep physiology, the cardiovascular system to the best. And then deep breathing, separated from going into the cold at home, is also able to activate a deeper physiology than we know. And because I did the science, I did the studies and research, they saw me activating what was thought in science and in medical science impossible for humans to do. So there I started the Wim Hof method, because they injected me with a bacteria which normally makes a person very sick and is experimental, very much studied and practiced model within medical science. to find out how the immune system could be improved. And then they took me in the same experiment. And because I trained so much in the cold and doing breathing exercises, they saw me doing what nobody had done in that experimental model ever, is to bring down inflammation. Inflammation through specific breathing techniques coming from the cold. And those breathing techniques, they bring down inflammation. And inflammation is the cause and effect of autoimmune diseases. One of them is called multiple sclerosis. So inflammation, if we have a way to suppress inflammatory markers in the blood, we take away the cause of autoimmune diseases. And this has been shown. That is what I did. But then they said, but you are the Iceman. They know you as the Iceman. And only you can do it. You have a different physiology. And normally, a superhuman, a freak of nature. I don't know, all kinds of things they said. And I only answered, no, what I can do, anybody can do. There in the hospital, I trained people to alter the condition of the immune system that suddenly was able to suppress the inflammation caused by injecting a bacteria. That's an experimental model. And they saw all the people who had done the training for 4 days. They were able to suppress the inflammation, the inflammatory markers in the blood, which is the cause and effect of, say, multiple sclerosis. So for multiple sclerosis patients, people therein, I have this method created, the Wim Hof method, and it talks about breathing exercises, specific breathing exercises, cold exposure, and mindset. Those three together have a more than significant positive influence in suppressing the inflammatory markers causing the multiple sclerosis. And how much depends on the person practicing. You learn to have, through this method, which has shown itself in scientific research to be very effective, you will be able to have this psychological sense of, I have got the steering wheel in my own hands. I can make the difference within my own body in a natural way. So the method is created because of scientific evidence showing how to battle inflammation, which is the cause and effect of any autoimmune disease. One of them is called multiple sclerosis. So for those people, look, if you hear this, look into this. Try it out. It will not harm you. It will be able to connect you with your body and to make a great difference within the pathology of multiple sclerosis. And that's a fact. And now it is up to the practitioner to do it. There's no dogma involved. This is not a religion. This is based on scientific data. And how much you practice is dependent on how you feel. Your feeling is the guide. If you just do this, you will feel that you got the steering wheel within your hand, that there is suddenly a guide that is leading you. That is your feeling. As long as you feel good while doing this, hey man, you are on the right track to get control over your condition. Food. It should be not sugar, not too much carbohydrate, which creates sugar, which is interfering with the physiology of ours in the mitochondrium, that is the energy factories of the cell. So a food diet together with this method will absolutely reduce big time the condition of multiple sclerosis. Just try it out.
Okay, Wim, you've made a very eloquent and interesting account of the Wim Hof method there. And when you're saying that, there's so much that I agree with you there, and you know, so much that I do myself, which is similar to your own method. And I've looked at it, the breathing exposure to cold and the commitment, and they all seem to make common sense to me. The only sort of point that you raised that I wondered about was, would it help people at any stage of the illness? Because I have progressive MS. That's to say, it still has an inflammatory element, but it also has a neurodegenerative element. So would it work for me, or would it work as well for me as it would for someone earlier?
Absolutely.
Okay, could you just explain why that is then? Just explain to me why that is.
Neurodegenerative disease. I take on people even with ALS.
Yes, which is also neurodegenerative disease, yes.
And so what you do, Ian, is take on 6 exercises, and you do what you can.
Yeah.
You do what you can. Yes?
Okay.
Exercise. One of them is breathing. You'd also do cold bathing.
Yeah.
Start with cold showers.
Yes.
And then you do some physical exercise, which is now like walking. Walking is debilitated through multiple sclerosis because of the neural transmission is being damaged. And therefore, we have to create bypass capacity in the body. And that is something new. That is in science is not known, but I always am pioneering. I go further. My principle is that I not only believe, I feel we are hardwired to heal ourselves. Only we have to find the pathways. So with multiple sclerosis, you have to go past the plaquettes. You have to go past the damage and create new pathways. And that is quite possible. Take on 6 different exercises. See where you are. And then use your mind and use your breathing consciously deeper when you walk, for example. Say, how much meters can you walk?
I can walk about 15, well, it depends. I can walk about 50 meters using a rollator, but I can walk about sort of 5 meters just without using any aid at all. So, okay. So what should I do? Tell me what I should do.
Once you get the feeling.
Yeah.
Once you get the feeling, listen well, Ian.
I am listening.
You can walk 10 meters. Yes. You are using your mind.
Yes.
Your mind is electrical signals.
Yes.
And with that, you create a bypass capacity.
Yes.
The body. And it has a motorical neural activation, power of activation by the motorical neurons.
Okay.
So it exists. It is up to you to do the 10 meters.
I will make that my goal tomorrow, to walk 10 meters. You've inspired me to have the commitment to do that, Wim. So I thank you for that. It's great to be given them a sort of positive encouragement. Yes. So I thank you once again.
Ian,
yes.
If you walk 10 meters, then it's because you created a neural bypass capacity.
Okay.
Your mind. So when you do that, breathe well.
Yes.
Well.
And also, yes. I'll have a cold shower before I do it as well, to expose myself to cold.
Very good. Yes. So once you do the 10 meters,
Yes.
3 days in a row,
Yeah.
you will see that the bypass capacity begins to recondition your body.
Okay. Got that.
And
Yeah.
so from there, you are able to go 12 meters or 15 meters. But follow that feeling, that new feeling that with 5 meters to 10,
Yes.
that new feeling is a new neural pathway.
Yes.
It's a feeling different than normal.
Yes.
And feeling you're going to increase, that is going to be your guide.
Yes. Okay. One thing that interested me was I thought I would look up before I talk to you to see whether there'd been any research into these three things: exposure to cold, breathing, and what I term commitment. And there was a paper published in 2014 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, which actually gave those three things a very positive appraisal and said that they did work. So there is some scientific evidence. You may be able to fill in more. There may be more scientific evidence than that these things work.
I'm working constantly with universities now, and this is going to be the future.
I was going to ask you how your approach, which is so radically different to the traditional approach of treating MS, is viewed by the medical or the MS establishment. How do they sort of react?
The existent establishment is a money-making one. This is non-pharmaceutical, pharmacological, whatever the name. We don't do exogenous drugs like pills and medicaments and steroids and whatever they use. We don't do that. We make use of the body itself.
Well, it is certainly based on the pharmaceutical approach is certainly based on medications, which are very expensive. So I would certainly agree with you on that.
Exactly.
Your approach isn't.
They don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose that monopoly.
No.
But I'm not doing monopoly. What I do is make use of the determination of a patient's conviction.
Yes.
Make use of breathing exercises that changes blood chemistry deeply, and train the cardiovascular system through cold plus the adrenal axis activation. And adrenaline, the adrenal axis activation within our bodies, is to fend off danger, to be of the utmost of functionality. Yes. And it has its ways. So you are going to use these natural means. And one of them is very important, to go from 5 meters to 10 meters tomorrow. Report back.
Okay.
Write it down.
If I could just stop you there. They always say that the longest journey starts with a single step. So my first step is to take the 5 meters and turn them into 10 meters, and then to try and turn them into 15, 20, and to go on incrementally.
Yes.
Walking more, walking better.
Yes.
And
as simple
better.
as it is.
Yeah. No. It's difficult, but it's rewarding. Every time, and as I find myself, every time I do something that I thought I couldn't do, I feel positive. I feel as though I've achieved something, and I feel as though I've taken control of an illness which has basically controlled my life for decades. Yes. I've had MS for 30 years, so I've seen this constant and progressive decline in my condition. And so anything that, even if over a small period of time, stops or reverses that movement is a huge sort of benefit to me psychologically. So I do certainly take on board that. And I think a lot of people listening will be relieved and pleased to hear the things that you say about, that we can control our illness ourselves. We can take control. We've got the power to do it ourselves. So my first step is to increase the distance that I walk. What else can people try at home today? What to get the benefits? Is there anything else you would suggest to listeners?
Wim Hof method is using the cold to improve the condition of the cardiovascular system, which is directly related to the neural activity around all veins and arteries and capillaries. Yeah. The vascular system is more than 100,000 kilometers long inside, and the neural activity, which is the neural transmission of energy, which is damaged in multiple sclerosis through the sclerosis, the plaquettes and all, and that is caused by inflammation, that will be exercised by going into the cold, that system. And then once again, it will be triggered, it will be activated, and then the plasticity of the body is able to do repair. But only when you go to it, only when you bring it to the surface. And that's what the cold showering does. It brings about the condition of the vascular system, which is adjoined with the nervous system, where is the problem with multiple sclerosis. And then good breathing alkalizes the blood. And with the blood, we are everywhere in the body. And when it alkalizes, our will, which is an electrical current, is able to travel through the body and its blood as a conductor to reach the nervous system. And the nervous system, which is damaged, needs plasticity to be activated. We are our own healing responsible agent. That's us. So do the breathing, do the cold showering, and do very specific exercising wherein you see progress, like 1 meter or 2 meter, or walking. I saw in one session, just in one session, people doing breathing, conscious breathing. Let's go. They could say walk 1 kilometer with MS, or not 1 kilometer, like 200 meters. And in just one session, breathing consciously and taking it on in every moment, being there, that is electrically charging you yourself through your world in your body, being able to like go instead of 200 meters, a kilometer long. And it's such a difference, such an instant difference people can make. And from there, they learn we have the steering wheel in our own hands. You start with a little to exercise where you think this is as far as I can go, but then you consciously get into it. You do the breathing, and you do conscious breathing while walking, for example, and you find that you are able to go double the distance at least.
What's your attitude to stretching? Because I find stretching of great help to me personally.
Stretching is absolutely great because it brings blood flow and lymph into the tissue.
Okay.
And also into the damaged tissue, by which it works better. There's more flow, there's more blood, there's more lymph. And then the transmission, neural transmission takes place much better. You know, you feel just better. That's because of that. Because when you stretch, you open up the tissue for blood and lymph to come in, by which the neural activity goes better. Yes, stretching, great.
That's brilliant. Is there any more research taking place into the Wim Hof method? We've talked about the 2014 paper.
Studies in San Francisco University with the best DNA researchers of the world. They are into it. In Detroit, I'm doing on bipolar condition. Those are mental disorders. They're on autoimmune diseases. They did a study. They prepared a fundamental study here in Radboud University. It shows that this brings down the what is it? Zero reactive protein, And that is one agent within multiple sclerosis, which is crucial for its effectivity to damage the body. And we bring that down. So once again, the pharmaceutical industry and the establishment where we live in makes money out of us. And this natural ways, they have proven themselves, but are not interesting because it doesn't make money. Simple as that. But what I see is a lot of anecdotal evidence, cases of people with multiple sclerosis who turn around the tables. I challenge anybody in the multiple sclerosis community to take this, please. Take it on. Give your body a chance to do something completely different that really has shown to work. And that, as it is going to work, write down the testimonials, because we are like a hospital, a free university, a university where we show the people there are natural ways to beat this multiple sclerosis pathology.
One of the things that really impressed me about the Wim Hof method was that it was achievable in the sense that anybody could do it. It was simple to do. It was straightforward and it was kind of measurable. You know, as you said, I could try 5 meters today, 10 meters tomorrow, so I could judge whether it was working or not. In that sense, it was empowering. It was putting control of MS back into my hands rather than in the hands of the other people who've had it for 30 years and done nothing about it that's actually benefited me. So I really like that, and I applaud you for doing that, for empowering MS patients. Where people listening to this will doubtless be interested and think, oh, this sounds interesting. Where can I find out more about it? So where should people go to find out more about it? You have a website, I believe.
There is, it's all for free. Our studies, we got a breathing bubble, which has been downloaded 58 million times because simply it works. That's why. Just go to YouTube, to the YouTube channel, and find out about the tutorials of the Wim Hof method. And you will find it all. Do the breathing bubble, get into the cold, be inspired by our advice, which is scientifically based and wholeheartedly shared. And there it is, for free. Your health is for free. It should be for free, and you should be in charge of that health. So for that, we are there anytime.
Okay. If there was one takeaway message that listeners should take away with them, what would it be? What would be your one message to people? What's the most important thing above anything else that you've said?
About anybody who suffers from MS, turn it around. It's there. You got the key. Just take on the key, open up to yourself, and make use of this beautiful body of yours and its powers.
So take control of your own illness yourself. Do something and put the illness back into your own hands rather than into the hands of other people.
Affirmative.
Okay, I've got that, and that's something I will do tomorrow when I do my 5 meter walk and 10 meters the following day. I will go for it. You've inspired me. I'm sort of already sort of preparing mentally for it. Is there anything else that I could do? I mean, I'm interested in doing anything I can to help myself. So now I suffer from all sorts of problems: urinary problems, spasticity, walking problems, eyesight problems.
Breathing exercises.
Breathe.
Do them.
Okay.
Do like 5 rounds, 6 rounds. Get to 2 minutes without breathing after exhalation.
Right.
You can do it.
And that's all on the website, isn't it? There's quite a, which I looked at this morning. There's quite a clear explanation of exactly how you do the breathing, how you breathe in, how you hold the breath, and how you breathe out. And it gives you timings as well. So that's all quite straightforward. And I think listeners will be able to access that and use it and take something from it.
Just make testimonials. if you see it has a success, and you will see it, we want to share effective ways how to deal with a place of hopelessness and dependency, and turn it around from hopelessness into strength, from dependency into control. Autonomy is ours.
That, Wim, is a great takeaway message. To empower yourself, take control of your MS and put it in your own hands, and you will progress. I thank you so much for that, Wim. Thank you very much. I feel empowered, and as I say, once again, I thank you for that. So have a good day. I will be out tomorrow turning those 5 meters into 10. So thank you again. Goodbye.
Yes, sir. Right on,
Thank
Ian.
you.
Go for it.
I will. I'm going for it now. Wim Hof there. If you're interested in learning the Wim Hof method, visit www.wimhofmethod.com for workshops, online courses, and more. Or you can download the Wim Hof Method app for free in the Google or Apple Store. Next, we're looking at motherhood and MS, the trials and tribulations of bringing up children when you have multiple sclerosis. One person who's had to grapple with these problems is Sally Darby, a mother of 2 from Birmingham, who has eyesight and mobility problems, amongst other MS symptoms. Sally tells us about how she coped with her MS problems and how they led her to set up a Facebook group called Mums Like Us, where disabled mums can share their experiences, both good and bad, as well as seek out solutions for the problems that disability poses. She joins me now. Welcome to the podcast, Sally. First of all, can you tell me a little bit about your MS journey? When were you diagnosed? What were your symptoms? And how is your MS now?
So I wasn't diagnosed until 2011, but my symptoms started in 2008. I have severe visual impairment, which came on pretty much overnight in 2008. And that is due to optic neuritis, but it's unusual in that it's never gone away. So I've been severely visually impaired all that time. But originally they didn't think it was MS. They didn't know what it was, to be honest. In fact, originally they thought it might have been a brain tumor. So the MS ended up being a bit of a relief in comparison to what I was worried it might have been.
Indeed.
And so then a few years later, I developed some other symptoms and went back and saw a neurologist and got diagnosed with MS in 2011. As it stands now, I've still got the visual impairment. That hasn't changed. It hasn't gone up or down. It's just stayed the same. And I have balance problems, strength problems. I'm not great on my feet, and I use a walking stick to get around. So yeah, that's sort of the main. The visual impairment, I think, is my main symptom. It's my most disabling symptom. But as far as the outside world would see, the walking would be the more visible symptom.
Okay, you're also the mother of 2 girls. When were your 2 girls born? What are their names and how old are they?
So I've got Alice, who's 9, who was born in 2013, so 2 years after diagnosis, and Lucy, who's 6, born in 2016.
Okay, and how did you communicate something as complex as MS to your daughters?
Well, I mean, they understand what I think is an age-appropriate amount. I think it's so complicated, as you say, and so difficult to understand, and even I don't understand it to the extent that I should or could. But it's all they've ever known, so they know that it's a bit different, and they know that I need a little bit of extra support sometimes, and they're both actually really sweet and kind and do give me that. But they don't know loads of detail. They know enough, in my view.
Right. You said in a 2020 New Pathways feature that being a new mum can be an isolating and lonely experience for anyone, but with the additional challenges of disability, it can be pretty desperate. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I can see you smiling when I said that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. Being a new mum is always hard, and it's always very, it's such a huge life change that you however much you try and prepare, you can't be fully prepared for. And with disability as an additional thing to try and deal with at that time, I didn't know any other disabled mums. I'd never met anyone else who was trying to navigate the early days of parenting with these additional challenges. And so I felt very isolated and very lonely. And even though I have wonderful friends and family who are incredibly supportive, it's just not being able to talk to somebody who's in the same or a similar boat as you makes you feel very, very lonely. And it's so underrepresented by the media and sort of the mothering world, as it were, that it's very easy to feel like you are on your own doing it like that.
You also said in the same feature that there isn't much of a conversation about motherhood and disability. And I think I quote when I say, you said, in my opinion, the world of parenting isn't geared up for disabled people. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
I think that when you're a new mum, you're sort of very much encouraged to get out there and go to the baby clubs and go to the mother and toddler groups and meet other mums. And that's great. And yes, that's the way it ought to be. But if you go to a baby group and everybody's sitting around in a circle, and it's very difficult for me to get down on the floor and get back up again. It's very difficult for me to they'll say you have to park the buggy at one end and carry your baby across the room. That was difficult for me. So these kind of things, they're not geared up often, very often I would say, they're not geared up with disabled parents in mind. And that sort of runs through every element of parenting, from those baby groups up to parents' evenings at schools, for example. You know, you have to ask, and if you ask, then they in general will try and make things easier for you, but it's not easy, it's not simple, it's not made that way. And one of the big problems is that there aren't any products aren't marketed towards disabled parents. So I'm not a wheelchair user, but now through mums like us, I know that many people who are, and they couldn't find a cot that they could put their baby in from a seated position. It's an example. So because there aren't disabled people working in the big organizations that make these products, or working at the top and making decisions about these things, the products aren't available. And so new mums are having to navigate all of that on top of all of the normal challenges that come with being a new parent. So I think that's what I meant by that. It's very much not geared up for disabled parents.
You've talked about something that I'd never heard of before in using the term mum shaming. What exactly is that, and have you ever been mum shamed?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I would use the term mum shamed if I was talking about it now, as opposed to mum guilt, because I think maybe I was a little bit more sensitive and raw back then, but I think maybe mum shaming puts too much blame on people, where I don't think people mean to shame each other, but we internalize a lot of this pressure to be this kind of mum that you see on Instagram, for example, this sort of perfect, getting everything right mum. And I think every new mum, and every mum in fact, internalizes that pressure. But when you've got disability to deal with as well, and you do feel so isolated and like no one else is doing it, it's easy to feel like other mums or other people are judging you, and it's easy to be concerned that people think that you can't do it or that you're not doing it right. And so I think that's what I meant when I said mum shaming. It's not necessarily a conscious or a deliberate or a malicious thing in any way. And a lot of it comes from inside ourselves, I think. But it does happen.
I was going to say, do you think there's an element of guilt about this? The feeling that that you're failing and you're not doing what you should be doing for your daughters?
Yeah, 100%. And that's a difficult thing to accept and say. And now I don't feel like that. But I've spoken to lots of other mums in a similar position, and you know, I know that I do my best by my kids, and I know that they are fine, but it is always easy to feel guilty. And I think, you know, if you speak to a full-time working mum, she would say that she feels guilty that she's not with them enough. There's always different things to feel guilty about, and this is maybe the thing that sort of troubles disabled mums is that they often feel like they're not able to do the things that other mums are able to do all of the time, when often they actually would be if things were more geared up to help them do those things. So that sort of comes full circle.
Okay, so turning for a moment to the Mums Like Us Facebook group and website, what made you decide to set that up and take a personal experience and sort of like go out there and seek other people with similar experiences?
Yeah, it comes back to what I was saying before about feeling really isolated. I was actually at a conference in London, and it was a session led by the Disabled Women's Collective, Sisters of Frida, and they were talking about various issues, and they mentioned that a couple of them were mums, and I asked a question at the end, which was, did they know if there was anything out there for disabled mums? And I found myself getting really emotional when I asked the question, which isn't like me, but I realized how much I needed it when I asked the question. And when they said no, I was heartbroken. And I just thought, if there's nothing out there, I can't be the only mum that feels like this. I can't be the only mum that would like other people to talk to who are in a similar situation. And when I started the Facebook group, it grew very quickly. It's got about 1,300 members now, with all different types of disabilities, and it's a wonderful community, and they support each other through the highs and lows of parenting. So yeah, that was why I set it up.
Just to confirm, this is a group for mothers with disabilities. It's not confined to mothers with MS, and also it's a closed group, isn't it? So
it is, yeah. So they just I answer a simple question about about that they identify as a disabled mum. That's all I ask of them, and yeah, then they're allowed to join and take part in as much or as little as they wish.
But it's important to have that sort of security in the knowledge that you're talking to people with exactly the same experiences as yourself, because you can open up a bit more then. And I understand that. I think that's an obvious reason for doing that. So turning to other women with MS hoping to start a family, what would be your advice? I mean, given your experiences, what would be your advice to a mum with MS hoping to start a family?
So since in the last few years, I've done a little bit of buddying work for a hospital in London, where I've spoken to women who are pregnant who have MS, and they've been able to air their concerns to me a little bit and seek some advice from somebody in a similar situation who's done it. So I think if you are able to ask your midwife or health professional if that's a possibility, if they know anyone they could put you in contact with, that is amazing. Having someone else who you can talk it through with is probably the gold standard of what you can do to prepare. Other than that, obviously, I'm going to say it, joining the Facebook group, join Mums Like Us. It's a really good resource. You will find somebody, whatever your MS symptoms, you will find somebody with similar experiences to you who will be able to give you some guidance and some advice. And it's difficult to believe in yourself and trust in yourself and think you can do it, but you can do it. Yeah, it's not as easy as it is. It's not easy for anyone, but yeah, it's different from the way it is for other new mums, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. You can do it. You're going to be amazing. You just have to tweak things and find your own way of doing it, but you'll be fine. That's what I would say to them.
Is there sort of a do's and don'ts? Is there one thing that you would say, I wish I had done, and one thing that you say, I wish I hadn't done?
I wish I hadn't beaten myself up so much. I wish I hadn't stayed at home because I was ashamed and because I didn't want people to see me not being able to walk very well while I was pushing my pram. I regret that, and I regret I wasn't like that with my second, but with my first, I was so nervy. So I'd encourage people to try and just get out there and get on with it if they can. In terms of do's, that's a really difficult question to answer because it's so individual to the person, to their baby, to their setup, their house, their family, who they've got around. But ultimately, ask for help, ask for support, most people are kind, and most people will do the little thing that you need to help them out. If it's getting you a chair at a baby group, or if it's, I don't know, opening a door for you, whatever it is you need, ask for that help.
Okay, based on your own experience, how could the situation of disabled mums be improved?
I think representation is really important. If disabled mums as characters on TV programs, etc., become more common, then we will stop thinking of it as such a weird thing and such an impossibility. I think that that also needs to come on social media and the kind of world of mummy influencers. It's a very popular thing for new mums to seek support and advice from, but there's very few disabled mums talking on those kind of platforms as well. So I think that has got better, actually, and as it continues to get better, that will provide more support for people. Secondly, like I said to you before about products, the more products that are marketed towards disabled mums and that are out there that they know they can find, rather than having to really search for those kind of things. And again, on mums like us, if you say, I need something to help me lift up my baby from the floor and I can't bend down properly, for example, 10 different people would give you 10 different brilliant ideas of a product you can buy. So it's people's experience. They've been there, they've done that, and they know what will help you.
There is actually a legal framework to the Disabled People, the Equalities Act, and prior to that, the Disability Discrimination Act. Would you see, lots of these problems being answered by sort of more strict laws, or is it about attitudes and awareness?
I think it's a combination of both of those things. Attitudes and awareness, of course, everything starts from attitudes and awareness, because it's not people being malicious that means they haven't got the things in place. It's that they're not aware and they don't know about it. So that it all stems from there. But I do think as well, yes, a lot of we know that shops and maybe restaurants and places like that are going to be adhering to, or are more likely to be adhering to, the accessibility expectations. But often the baby groups and things that I was talking about before are in village halls, or they're they're in exercise studios, places where people are expected to get there easily. And so I don't think that always these small organizations are expected to meet the requirements of the law. And maybe, I don't 100% know this, but maybe if they were encouraged a little bit more to do that, then that would improve things for new mums.
At a personal level, I often feel the greatest impediment or barrier is ignorance. People don't, you say you've got MS, people don't know what it is, they don't know what they should do. And in a sense, you have to be a sort of ambassador for MS. You have to explain to them, this is what it is, this is what I need you to do for me, this is what I can't do, this is what I can do, those kind of things. You have to take it on board yourself. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are understandably a little bit scared of things that they don't understand and know about. And so you'll often see with, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, with mums and or dads, equally with dads in fact, and kids will be like, oh, why is that lady got a stick?
Yes, yeah. Cry.
It's fine, we'll talk about it later. Don't be so rude, don't point, don't ask questions. And you sort of think, well, actually, do ask questions.
Absolutely, you do need to explain. That's the one kind of time when you can't sort of like just go into the shadows. You've got to go up and say, I need a stick because I can't walk very well, because I have this disease called multiple sclerosis. And if you say that to children, at a personal level, don't have any children myself, but I have two nephews. And I was always quite clear to them, explaining why I had double vision, why I couldn't walk very well, why I needed to use the toilet a lot. And by and large, the two boys understood it. They seemed to get it. If I explained it in clear and sort of easy terms to them, it was just, oh, Uncle Ian's different. He's a bit different to my other uncles or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not frightened of it then, because they've understood early and clearly. And it's when you hush it away and act like it's a big scary thing that people become more nervous and are unwilling to engage in conversation about it.
Well, I think they kind of mimic your own attitude. So if you're hiding things away and you're not talking about them and you're not being sort of open, then children tend to do the same thing. Oh, this is a sort of hush hush subject. We oughtn't to talk about it because, Uncle Ian isn't talking about it, or my mum isn't talking about it. So we better not talk about it. But once you open up and say, yes, this is what it is. It's, quite simple to understand. You've just got to do this and do that and don't do this or that. Then they kind of get it, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a little bit similar to what you were saying about guilt earlier on. If you can approach this thing in a guilt-free way, in my experience, and say, look, this is just me. This is just, what I am about. And, you can help me by doing this or by doing that or by not doing this or that. Then kids tend to get it and understand it, and that's been my experience. So, I don't know whether it's been yours as well.
Yeah,
I see you nodding.
Yeah.
Based on everything that you've said, what is the one most important piece of advice or guidance you'd give to mums with MS?
Try not to feel bad about yourself. Try to believe that you can do it, and ask for help, and know that you're a brilliant mum, and that everybody finds it difficult. Everybody finds it difficult in different ways. And try not to. Sorry, you asked for one thing and I'm giving you three.
No, please do continue.
I think try not to worry too much about things that haven't even happened yet. I spent so much time worrying about what I was going to do at this stage and this stage and this stage, whereas actually you just adapt as you go. And with parenting, you nail one thing and then suddenly they're up on their feet and you've got to nail another thing, and then suddenly they're trying to climb the stairs and you've got to nail another thing. There's no point in worrying about all those steps ahead. It's worth being prepared and talking to people, but try not to panic about it, because you will just develop new strategies and ways of coping with situations as you move along. And every parent's like that, but even more so when you've got a disability.
So try and avoid guilt. Don't panic. Treat it as being normal. It's part of you. It's part of me. It's part of and as you said earlier, mums and dads have, all sorts of health problems. My mum had ulcerative colitis, as I think I told you, and we had to grow up, with the limitations that imposed on our lives. So we're not alone. Although we have a condition which is quite unusual, there are many other parents who have medical conditions which kind of stop them doing certain things. So there's a big community of us out there, really.
Absolutely, yeah. You're not alone. That's the key thing, probably, isn't it? You're not alone. You're not the only one, and you're fine.
and you shouldn't feel guilty. I think that's the other message I'm getting from you. Don't feel personally sort of guilty for this situation. It can be resolved quite easily if you explain, and your life will be enriched through that. The worst thing of all you can do is to conceal or hide things. And by being open and educational, I suppose you could say, then you will have a much richer sort of experience of parenting and a better life as a consequence, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Being able to talk about it. I mean, it's the same with everything, isn't it? Everything that you go through in life, being willing and able to discuss it and put it out there. I think that definitely makes it easier rather than internalizing everything.
Well, Sally Darby, thank you very much for talking about parenting with disabilities, and also for telling us about Mums Like Us Facebook group. So I thank you very much. I wish your group and yourself all the best, and I'll say goodbye. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Okay. Sally Darby there. If you enjoyed listening to the podcast, please spread the word about us on social media or tell your friends and family. And if you have any queries about the podcast, you can email us at info@ms-uk.org. Finally, remember that anything you hear on Let's Talk MS isn't medical advice. So, till next time, stay well and see you soon. Take care.